A meeting of a totally different nature yesterday happened up at Trump Tower, where network executives, I know, network executives and anchors marched in to be lectured to by President-elect Donald Trump. You cite in Sidewire this morning that somebody called it a freaking firing squad. That's what it was like.
Yeah, they used a different word, but
yes,
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually, I suspect Donald Trump is the one that leaked the harshest version of this, because it's with his. He wants to meet with the media. He can't have a meeting with the media and not be against his own brand. So he has to have the meeting and come out saying he was yelling at people and commanding them what they were doing. There were softer versions of that story that came out later, but still, he clearly singled out his longtime friend Jeff Zucker at CNN for for particular criticism, and he didn't like NBC.
He said that CNN. He said everybody at CNN, according to reports, that everybody at CNN was a liar, and that Zucker ought to be ashamed. That the whole network was a network of liars. I mean, on and on.
I guess that includes his employees that work at CNN,
like Corey Lewandowski.
Yeah. I think that Donald Trump's efforts to destroy American institutions are pretty dangerous, and destroying the press is one of the most dangerous. I mean, if you go back and look at our founding fathers, they had a pretty strong belief that the press was more important than the government.
As we remember Thomas Jefferson saying, if I had to choose between, right?
Newspapers and a government.
Yeah, right. You know what? I was just thinking what you were saying about I happen to be, full disclosure, I think everybody knows, a contributor at CNN, so I'm a liar, I guess.
You're not a liar.
But, I mean,
you may tell lies sometimes, Bill, but you're not
But how
a liar.
many times have I sat alongside of Kayleigh McEnany and Jeffrey Lord and Corey Lewandowski, all of whom are on CNN? No other network, I'm not trying to be defensive of CNN now, but I think it's true, no other network had as many pro-Trump people among their contributors and on their panels who were on the air every freaking day, right?
Yes. One of whom at least was on Trump's payroll.
One of them was on Trump's payroll.
CNN's payroll.
Right. But I guess, so did the media make a mistake by just showing up and just sitting there and taking it from Donald Trump?
Yeah, I think so. I think if you're reporting, if you're at an event and you're reporting, you have an obligation to stick around, even if the candidate is yelling at you and telling his supporters to chant anti-Semitic things at you, or telling them they're terrible. Not Trump. I don't think Trump ever told anybody to chant anti-Semitic things, but that happened. And Trump encouraged the hatred of the press. You have a responsibility to cover the event. If you're there for a meeting that's off the record, and there is literally, the rules are there's no news coming out of this. I think you have every right, and to some degree a responsibility to get up and walk out. And Donald Trump will learn over time, if he decides to not have the media near him, that it is better to have the media near him, because it is easier to manipulate the media if the media is in the White House briefing room. Yeah. I mean, that's like the White House doesn't have the media there because they respect the media. I mean, over the course of the last, however many years. No. It's so you can control and manipulate the media.
Exactly. I mean, we know, those of us in the briefing room, right, every day, that we are being used. And to a certain extent, we are being used by the media. Now, everybody does his or her best to avoid that, to ask tough questions.
To use back.
Right, to use back, right, and to tell the truth and to poke holes and stuff. But in a certain sense, just the fact that we're sitting there, right, makes it look like they're serious, they're delivering the truth.
And the dynamic has changed, because now you don't need a press to get your message out. You can do it on Twitter. So if you're Donald Trump, you can do 140 characters or less, or fewer, I guess, every few minutes if you want. And so you don't need newspapers like you did in a traditional way, or the networks as you did in a traditional way to get your message out. That said, it is still worth having them there, in part because it means that the best journalists in the country aren't doing anything else. That they're not spending time looking into you. No, I mean, this is the problem with the White House. A lot of times the best reporters, like they make it there, and then they spend 2 hours waiting for the briefing to happen, and then they spend an hour in the briefing and an hour writing up the briefing, and lo and behold, the entire day is gone.
Yeah, right.
And when they get scoops, it's usually spoon-fed stuff it's really impossible to confirm anywhere else, right? Yeah. Some White House flack says, "Oh, by the way, the president, what he did today was the smartest, most unprecedented move ever."
Right.
And you're like, "Oh, I got to write it down."
Spoken by a man who has spent many hours in the White House briefing room waiting for the briefings to start, right alongside of me. John Allen here from Sidewire and Roll Call.